Hello, good morning, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to part 3 of the van build series. So, it's layout which I want to talk about. I started off with a great idea and I put it around the shape of the van, how it's going to work inside, and it's all going really well, up to the point that I decided to think about what I was going to put in the van. First mistake, don't do your layout until you've actually got some equipment in place and decide how much space you need. So the final layout of the van came down to one important piece of equipment, and it's hard to believe because it's all about photography, but it came down to the most basic of human functions. Everybody needs to take a wee. So I didn't want the idea of being caught out in the middle of nowhere with very little privacy sometimes, trying to do a little bit of stealth camping on location and having nowhere to take care of the essentials. It came down to the size of the toilet and needing to fit it somewhere in the van. So I opted for this Outwell portable toilet, which turned out to be the smallest that I could find to fit into the space that I wanted. I didn't want just a bucket, I wanted something that would have a proper cassette on it and enable me to trap some of those offensive odours, shall we say, inside and safe, so that I could carry on using the van and not have to sit there in huge amounts of discomfort, shall we say. So let me show you where the toilet's going to go and then we'll get into the rest of the layout. So for some very practical reasons it made perfect sense to have the toilet at the back of the van, because it allows me to take the toilet out through the back tailgate, empty it out, clean everything out without having to drag everything right through the van and making life difficult. So originally my plan was to have the toilet this way around, and that would form the end of the bench, and then I'd have a bench running down through this way through the van and some seating along here with cupboards over on this side. All would have worked really well, giving me nice access through the centre of the van, somewhere to store the camera bags and everything underneath here, and have a slide out bed working this way. Until I came to one point. Time you build a framework around this and put some cupboards in place and then put your feet in here, the distance between the end of the bed and the seating along this side and the cupboard this side would be very narrow. So what it would have meant is I would have to have made this space really quite small. And storage for me is very important because I've got some fairly large pieces of equipment to get in here. I need to get in some power equipment to charge up batteries and just run the van in general. The toilet itself isn't small for a van build of this size, and also some fairly large camera equipment as well, so I need to be able to get the camera rucksack in. So space is really important. So the solution is to actually turn the toilet that way, and then it means that the lid's got to open this way, which is absolutely fine. But the problem then is, of course, that you can't really have a seat going that way. So complete redesign of the van, absolute complete redesign. Now we're going to have a seat going this side, cupboards running down this way, and the bed will extend out from this end to create a small double and a good sized single bed to use for sleeping on. So I did have to do a complete redesign. So let's talk about how I'm actually going to create that framework. Now I have to say that deciding what to make this furniture out of has been one of the most difficult parts of designing the van build from beginning to end. How I was going to power the van was easy. Some of the needs that I needed in the van, some of the function of it, and even the layout has been reasonably easy once I had some parameters set that I needed to follow, i.e. fitting the toilet in. But deciding exactly what to build it from has been a bit of a nightmare. There are several different options I could have gone for. Wood would have been the easier option in many ways, but it wouldn't have been so tidy, it would have been a bit heavier and probably not quite as strong. And then it came down to going for different types of aluminium extrusion. Now the most common type that you come across is something called 80-20. In fact 80-20 is kind of a bit like a trade name, and you can get it in lots of different sizes. You can get it in 40-40 and you can get it in 20-20. Now I've had a look at lots of different van builds and things on the internet, and I've noticed that most people seem to be using 40-40. It seems to be the obvious choice to use. It looks like it's really strong, very sturdy and works really well. The problem is I've got a very small van and every millimetre of space is important. And I want to use this every day, so weight is very important. I've decided to go for the next size down, which is 2020. I'm hoping, and by the end of today I guess I'll know whether I'm right or not, I'm hoping that that isn't a mistake. It does mean that it's half the weight. It also means that it's going to be taking up less space inside the van. The sections will be thinner, so I can actually slide things in or out. Going for this size made the difference between being able to have more support around the toilet and not. There was a few little things which I needed to consider and fit in. It's caused me some other problems now with trying to find hinges and things to fit doors to later on, and I'm just hoping that by going for this size I haven't made a mistake and it's going to be too flimsy, but we'll find out. It's also a third of the cost. So here we are, delivery day. I guess this is the moment of truth really, whether or not everything comes as I expected it to, and whether it actually fits in the van. Now I'm hoping the way that I've put this together, I can put a few bits together in modular sections and then build it up as time goes on. Let's have a look at what we've got. Okay, on a fairly good start. It looks like it's all here. It looks like it's all complete. I've just been measuring up a few sections just to sort of see that I've got the right bits that I need, and it all looks to be fairly good, to be honest, so I'm quite happy with that. One mistake, and I've just checked it on the details of the order, and it is my mistake, it doesn't come down to this company whatsoever, is I've ordered the wrong size of internal clamping frames, because I was originally going to do it from 40/40. I left the ones for the 40/40 in the basket, changed to 20/20, didn't swap them over. It's not going to stop me starting to put this together though. It might be that I've just got to switch out a few connectors later on, but it's not enough to stop me doing it, so we'll carry on. We'll get some of the build set up and done. Now I'm hoping, because of the way that I've designed it, that I can build part of the sections up in a modular form, so I can put together some of the 40/40 sections to go around the toilet area and some of these other supports, and then add bits to it as I go on. Let's crack on. Well, that's the first section put together. I didn't want to embarrass myself by struggling to work out how it's all going to fit and film putting together this first part, but I'll show you some other bits as I go along. So this part is going down beside the toilet. There's one to go this side, one to go up here against the trim panel itself, and that will form the first part of the bench to go across here with a seat across the top. I think I've got another 3 of these to make up, so I'll make those up now, and that will be pretty much the back end of the van done. The only thing I'm going to have to do is take these panels off, take out the take out these panel sections and remove the tools from behind them. Otherwise, if we have a flat or a puncture, we won't be able to change the tyre without disassembling the entire back half of the conversion. So we've got to make sure we do a few things like that. Pleased with the way it's gone so far, so let's put the rest of it together and see what we've got. Well, I'm really pleased the way that this is going. I'm sorry if it's a little bit bright behind me, but because the van's dark on the inside, I want to be able to show you the van. But it is working reasonably well. It wouldn't be right to say that I hadn't had any hitches, but let's face it, although I've drawn this up and measured it as best that I can, this is a prototype, it's a one-off. There is no other vans like this one. It's my own design and my own work, so you're always going to have the odd adjustment to make, the odd thing which you have to change, which isn't quite right. So I'm okay with that. I'm not being disheartened by it. It is a prototype, and there will be things which I need to correct and put right. But as you can see, I've pretty much got the back together now. Fitted the toilet in there really well. I'm starting to build up this framework in this area, and this bit joins with the side going down as well. So as I start to put that together, it's going to become a little bit tight and difficult to film and work in here. So what I'm going to do next, and what I'm going to show you next, I'm going to put this all together. Then I'm going to get you guys back into the van with me so you can see what the finished article looks like. We're then going to be looking at, one, how do we bolt it down to the floor, because that's going to be really critical, and also what do we put where, what's the next stage. And I've started putting some pieces in place already to show you where they're going to fit and how the design's going to work out. So time for me to crack on, and I'll be back with you when I've actually built this section up. Well, hello, good morning everybody. I sort of gave up doing any more filming, any more building yesterday. It was getting quite late in the day by the time I'd finished. I spent a good 6-7 hours, maybe 8 hours even on the van. And I got to a point that I was reasonably happy with. I've uncovered a few little jobs and bits and pieces and modifications that I need to make to the trim back here to fit the frame in place properly. But basically I'm happy with it. Now there's a few other things we've got to do today other than van building. So today's just going to be about measuring up for the next stage of the build, correcting a few little bits and pieces, and trying to make some sense of where we need to go next. So what I'm going to do this morning, rather than bore you with all those details, is just give you a bit of an overview of what's coming next in what will be episode 4. So let me get inside the van so I can show you around and give you an idea of what we've achieved and where we're heading next. Right, coffee first, most important thing. So in normal use, access to the van is going to be through this side door, because this side we're going to have some seating and beds. Obviously the back of the van now we can no longer use, so we're going to use this space. And to achieve that, I'll probably actually run most of the time in campervan mode with this seat actually removed. And one of the other jobs I can do later on is work out how I'm going to fit the cool box and everything down into this space. But for now, just let me show you how this worktop is going to work and how we're going to use this as a kitchen area. So once they're out the way, that'll give me access into the inside of the van through here, which is great. It'll give me somewhere to sit on the edge of here, and also somewhere to bring another unit along and cook as well if I want to use an awning at some point on the side, or whether I want to cook inside the van with the side window open. Now originally I wasn't going to put a sink in the van, being very small as it was. I thought it was a luxury I could actually do without. But I kind of started thinking that, you know, from experience of camping, how difficult it can be sometimes to pick a water container up and pour water into a jug and trying to get things out, and just the physics, the physical sort of things of moving about inside this small space. So I did want some way of pumping water out of a tank into a kettle or a bowl or whatever, so I could cook and wash. Now the other problem of course is that I want this van to be entirely completely off grid, and I'm going to do that using some kind of sort of lithium ion solar generator, you know, something like a Jackery or a Buetti or something like that, with a solar panel, and obviously charge from the van as well. So I don't want to use any power, so I've looked around for some hand operated water pumps. Now the other thing with that, of course, if I've got a hand operated water pump, I could really do with somewhere to catch the drips, and then I thought I need to get rid of waste, so well actually I just as well install a sink. So I found one of the smallest sinks I could actually find, which is this one here. It was quite cheap, it wasn't too bad. It's just a very basic sort of sink. The only thing is it's come with some fittings missing, so I've got to get that sorted out. But the idea is that the sink will sort of sit in this space here, over the top of the water containers, which are down here. Sorry, it's a bit exposed. It's this difficult thing about it being bright and thing in there again. So that'll give me access to that. I can get to my wastewater and my freshwater containers underneath there, and I've got this little hand operated tap which is going to sit somewhere like that, just over the top of it, so I can pump water out of the that looks a bit better, so I can pump water out of the freshwater tank into a kettle or into the bowl or whatever I need, really. So that's how that's going to work. So it's going to have quite a bit in the back of this small little camper, and hopefully that'll all come good. So with a small van build like this, one of the things which is really important is making the most use of every millimetre of space that we have available. And I've designed the front of the unit on this so that the top rails expand over the top of the unit itself. And what that means is that I can have a little bit of a lip and overhang on the worktop, and that gives me a little bit of space underneath to store tables and bits and pieces behind the seats if they go in that position. It's also going to give me somewhere to attach some bits and pieces from, and it makes a nice finish up with the seat when the seat's in the upright position. And I just thought that would help a little bit. But it does create another problem. It means that with it fully extended, my front seats won't actually fold up into position. So I could cut the rails down to size, which it's still an option to do it. But I think what I'm going to do is take a little bit of the trim away on the back of the van and just slide the whole thing back into place. And it might give me a little bit better access into here, so I can actually replace the original jack and tool sort of storage space, which would be quite good if I do that. So all I'm going to do is just trim along here, take out that little section of trim which will allow this to come back into position. So that's all for today's video, folks. I hope that you found it useful if you're thinking about building and doing your own van on your own. Like I said, it's a Caddy Maxi. There's not many conversions around for the Life version of this that I've actually seen done on YouTube. So so hopefully some of you guys that are thinking of doing this version of van, you'll find that useful as well. Normally we are a photography channel. We're out in the field. We'll give you hints and tips on your photography, sharing my experiences and my thoughts on the art and the meaning behind the photographs as well. So if that's your thing, and I'll catch up with